Both of those.
Right, both of them.
Let's see where the live one.
Units, participants. And then the attendance pop up.
Yeah, you could honestly leave it like that now that this is running, or whatever point you start.
Okay.
Running, you could just leave it on that. And,
policy.
Okay.
Well,
they did.
That's why we selected services on that stretch of road between.
And I think we, JJ will be there.
I don't see her on here yet, Mayor, but we have, because I had to go live first, so let's see if she pops up here.
When we did the way.
I'm gonna ask her to try again.
Okay.
I would have seen all of those, all of those companies. With their proposals.
Yeah.
and Qualifications.
That's right.
And then this next thing they're gonna talk to.
No, you're fine, Chuck. Yeah, that's what they had last Monday.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get it.
This is just
Like the wastewater.
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
Oh, it's all right.
I can send you that.
You know what I mean?
Entertaining.
Scott, I've got a long look for you.
Well, and I was
Paul,
able.
I misspoke, the diagonal street, that will be at the work session on the 20th.
Right.
Okay.
So we can just hold on. So it'll just be.
Gotcha. Every day.
We've got, dates for first of the, so.
The one that I was least prepared on.
With the,
I don't know if those tires ever get.
logical thinking. Was
Yeah.
not,
Oh.
that's what it's called.
All right.
Was
I'll
he
let you know what they.
Did you sell your western copy of the ball field there?
Yeah. Steal it back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just saw that was, it was, get renovated.
Oh,
I figured you did.
A long time.
No, I mean, well, last time I saw you, you got weeds on it, remember?
They were supposed to.
Me and you got weed, you got weed.
Yeah, sure.
Troubles.
I can do my hair.
I don't know. Are you?
My expertise is like, I can keep out a light socket. But you can do like, put a light.
Yeah. Why?
You burn there in your building?
I use it
The other day?
I don't know what.
You guys really burn up there? The other day? Was it Friday? Yeah, I thought it saw.
Sure. With the radio.
Yeah, stuff there.
I'm just chilling, trying to get along, right? I mean,
Well, really? You guys do training with them?
We were under academy, the fire academy.
Oh, really?
Two
Drone
here.
station. Drone. House by section.
16 weeks.
Jeez.
Fall and, spring academy.
All the residents.
Oh, I think I know why.
Oh, yeah.
Zoom did this to me on our last meeting.
Yeah.
It made me do an update, and at least at my house, and Kate's right up behind me, it took 15 minutes with my connection. So it may take her 15 minutes. It wouldn't let me log in without the latest Zoom update.
Yeah.
The Zoom?
Yeah.
There's a Zoom?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And it doesn't give you warning. So, you know,
You log on.
so you're like three minutes early, and all of a sudden it pops up. Guess what? You're gonna be real late, cause it says, we won't initiate it without the update, and then that takes 15 minutes.
So if you have it, you don't automatically, you got to open it, and then once you log in, then it tells you.
So you don't know, like last time you were on Zoom, it says, you know, be aware, we're gonna initiate an update by da. If you'd like, upgrade now. No, it makes you late for your meeting.
Dang.
Yeah, you're on.
Holy cow. Well, that's pretty wild. That's a.
But you gotta have like.
There's hours of operation in here. It doesn't mean that for a particular snow event, things can't change.
No.
This is just normal.
Andy, she's wanting to
operating.
know if you can re-invite her.
We do have some workers, but they're not even in the bathroom.
Cause she says, it's saying that the address is invalid.
You know, we'll see. As far as it's gonna be walker.
I can send the invite that
Rooms go into actually change shower people that has a toilet like a shower.
I'm very interested.
So a separate, separate, that separate shower. Yeah, for walker themselves.
So if I send the link
But then.
that Wonder sent out, would that work? You think?
Shower.
Well, I would think, but
Yeah, that
Andy,
way-
frankly, I'm a rank novice at this.
I think that works in
Water
to panelist
Yeah.
once it gets on, right?
Oh, wait. Somebody joined.
Sometimes.
Hey, Talia, there she is.
No, it wasn't Montrose. Sometimes.
Truck stops have been like that for a while.
Okay,
Not
Kate
necessarily a locker room.
I've invited Kate to show us panelists,
There's a shop
Okay.
inside there.
So I think we're close.
You know, like a nightstand where you could kind of set up and get your drinks ready. Right,
Then you still go in there.
right.
Right, when I did armed security.
Yeah, we did the
I
refresh.
really thought
Regional
straight up, like professional, that's not. I was completely wrong. Well,
Hey, it's okay.
Sorry.
it was hilarious.
We haven't started yet, you haven't missed anything.
Good,
Hi,
because.
guys.
Hi,
Hey,
Kate.
Kate.
Hey, I'm glad you're able to.
Sorry,
We can hear
sorry
you.
for the technical difficulties.
Zoom did the same thing to me.
Very drafty.
It made me update, and it took 15 minutes to
Very drafty.
update last time I was
Okay.
on.
Cool, I'm here.
All right. I have an idea what I want to do with the map, so.
Okay.
Still up there?
And then we take this to the
Ready?
website,
Essentially, yes.
I think that would be good.
You can go to another one.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for attending and welcome everyone to November 18, 2024 City of Idaho Springs work session. We have 3 items plus a little bonus item I would like to get council to weigh in on. Very minor. Some of you may know the old Sunshine Cafe building. Also, for those who have been here long enough, we also refer to as the old Get Gas building.
On Jiggies.
Get Gas had a roaster chicken.
Yep.
And
Movie rentals.
there is, yes, the movie rentals. And as part of Empire Demolition's quote to demolish the building, there is a, I don't know, probably 40-year-old freestanding walk-in cooler. That is one that sits outside. And it does not, of course, meet current refrigerant requirements. So I found out the hard way from moving one many years ago that once it's on the fritz, that's it for your, unless you want to go and pay for an entire new refrigerant system, at least in my case. We had an unfortunate incident happen with the food bank over in Netherland. They just lost their cooler. Jonathan Keene remembered that we had one, not knowing if it still worked. I asked Mr. Anderson, who we acquired the property from. He said it still does work, and that Jonathan said the food bank would like to take the chance on moving it. And if it survives, you know, it is large enough. I sent the dimensions, it's about 7 foot by 10 foot. It might get them through for a while. So I think it would be good to help out and bring nonprofit and keep it out of the landfill. Probably make Empire's job a little easier too. But I wanted to get your input on this donation. And they have volunteers that would come, and I don't know if they've planned on moving it as, because it is small enough, they could move it as a unit, which I think would lessen the chance of it not working. But in my case, I took one apart just like this because it came apart in sections. However, in my case, it rendered it inoperable.
One question I probably think I know the answer to is our local food banks, it's nothing to do with that, right?
Yeah, we've never, oh, I will say we've never had anybody express an interest in it. I think, you know, you could get to the point of diminishing returns if it were a newer unit or one that had current refrigerant, that'd probably be a different story.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, if John needs help, tell him, get it over there. All.
Jimmy, I will pass that along and that is very generous of you. Thank you.
Yeah,
But we have experienced that many times with Ally. Lisa?
So this would just be a straight donation?
Yeah, it's just a donation.
I think this is appropriate.
Me too, 100%,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
If
those- I
they
think
get some
those-
use out of it, then.
It's gonna need some work just to get it back up and running, so whatever they put into it, they're gonna have to put some money into it.
Still cheaper than a new one.
Right.
Paul, as far as you know, we don't have the combo for that lock, do we?
No, but we can cut it off.
Yeah.
We have the master combo.
We have the, yeah,
Yeah.
we have the technology. Jeremy, your thoughts?
Do it.
All right, well, thank
And
you.
like I say, I'll go there if John needs,
Appreciate, the one that I moved was in Greeley, it was larger, it was in better condition, because mine was inside a food warehouse.
yeah,
And I bring this up because though it was the same construction, where it came apart in like these metal 3-foot sections, it doesn't have its own floor. So, it had flanges on the bottom, and it basically just like lagged to the concrete floor
yeah.
it was on. I assume this is the same way. So, maybe they can use the existing or they're gonna have to pour one or something. Anyways, just let you know,
Gotcha.
I got it for free for moving it, and in my case, it wasn't worth it, so. Anyways, but I do have some experience. Would recommend, this be moved as one unit, just
Oh, yeah.
to lessen the chance it does not work. Kate, online, your feelings?
Same thing, guys. Go for it.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
Oh, and you mentioned the refrigerator, there's a new refrigerator. First. So it'd be even harder to deal with, and these refrigerators are not compatible with each other.
Automotive,
You can
automotive
flush
or
lines to put
commercial.
commercial,
Okay.
or even residential.
Or yeah, because the automotive just changed in 17.
Well, yeah.
Well-
It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
In my case, it's old and you can't my compressor won't take the
Well, a lot
the
of it's
latest and.
not compatible
Right,
with, yeah.
yeah, so.
You would have to buy a new compressor.
Yeah, I mean, and it isn't worth that.
Right.
And in my case, it's a boat anchor.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Well, if this can help them, then
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll get them by for a while, but you know how it is, they have very limited funds. And it just goes,
Yeah.
and you hope a restaurant or others will help you out with food that you currently have in there, or it's all gonna go bad.
Well, and the disruption too of hauling that, really, it ups the chances of it not operating or something, or it might help it too. They say turn a fridge over, if it quits working, and then put it back in it, so who knows, but.
to answer Scott's question, I am on a board with 2 of the board members for Whales and Fishes. They haven't said anything like, oh, we're struggling. They seem to be in pretty good shape, actually.
Yeah.
Just say for on all, yeah, no, I haven't heard,
And
I would have heard if the refrigerator went out.
They have more modern equipment. I'm not saying it would take the latest and greatest coolant that's coming out January 1st, but
Yep.
I've done a tour and I've actually walked into their equipment and I was impressed. I think that they're laid out pretty well.
Well, I knew the new automotive refrigerant is like $300 a pound now
Wow.
for the R1234A. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's big, it's big money for, those compressors and stuff that take that stuff, so.
All right, well, thank you. I apologize for that tangent not on the list. We do have 3 items for our work session today. Starting off with the police rotation and vehicle maintenance. And Jimmy, I would ask that you stay, in your comments are welcome, but I'm sure you were already prepared.
To recuse on the vote.
Right, when we actually come to the vote, but your experience and frankly, Chief's experience as well, are very valuable for council.
Appreciate that.
And Chief, I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, so, like I said, when I published with you all, the first thing I'd like to say is the relationship that we've had with Allied Towing has been very good. They've been very dependable. It's been a very good company. There's been a few one-offs where there's been, you know, an officer maybe waiting for a little bit longer than what we would like, but it's one-off. It hasn't been something that I've contacted Jimmy about or the company. I mean, it's been a good relationship. And, so I think that needs to be a point of emphasis here. So what happened was, just for a little history, is that we're cruising along, everything's fine, and then I can blame it on Jimmy for moving. So it's Jimmy's fault because he moved his business. So as soon as he moved his business, there were a few things. We started using some other services for some basic services because they weren't really prepared. They were in the process of moving. And so that started to happen. They have provided very good service for our vehicles, and we can talk about that as a separate item, because I think it is a separate item. The current agreement with Allied is that they provide all the services to the city. So if we're out on the highway and we need a tow truck for an accident, we tell dispatch, send Allied. If we're out there and someone needs a tow, send Allied. So that's what we are really trying to follow. But when they moved, what happened was, number one, we started to see other companies move in or around the city. So there's one company that now has property on Stanley Road. They're renting. They've shielded that. It looks like on clear maps that technically is not in the city, but literally it's a rock stone's throw away from the city on Stanley Road. There was also another company that came in and moved into the property that was vacated by Allied. And so what happened was there were people that started walking into the police department, and there were business owners or business representatives. I started to receive emails from a couple of the companies as well saying, do you have a tow rotation list? Do you have a tow rotation list? I started researching, I checked with the county, and I provided you a copy of the current tow rotation list, at least as of the dates on the memo. There could be a new one, I don't know. But that's what was provided to me from the county. The sheriff's department does have a tow rotation list where they have different companies that are part of the list, and you just say next one on the tow rotation list when you request a tow. I'm also very familiar with that. I did talk to Jimmy about that a little bit, that I'm familiar with that where I came from. Of course, much bigger, 100 police officers, 80,000 residents, dozens or a dozen tow companies, so much bigger area. So what I'm here for is not what my goal is to get some direction and some guidance from council. I have not met with these tow companies that have come in. I haven't like vetted how they do business. I haven't vetted, I haven't performed any sort of, check with other agencies to say, hey, what's your relationship like with these companies? I haven't done any of that because I wanted to come here and talk to council first. The other thing is, I don't have a problem if we continue where we are. If we continue with the current agreement, I don't have a problem with that. The other thing that I put in here that I think just needs to be said and out there, and I've said to Jimmy and he knows, and I think he feels the same way. I think just the perception. We want to make sure that as a city and as a council, that there isn't a perception that somehow he and I are going out and he's, I'm helping his business solely and that kind of perception. I don't think the city wants that. That's what makes this a little bit, just not the most comfortable, but we just need to have a conversation. So, and like I said, this has nothing to do with the company not providing ample good services. I just want to be able to say, look, council, I need your help. I'll be the decision maker, I'll be the decider on a lot of things, but this is one where I need some guidance from council, because we have a business now that in the city limits, who's asking. I know that oftentimes the city tries to maybe help promote local businesses within the city limits. There's one right outside the city, and then there's a person who has dedicated his business and 30, 40 years of his life to the city and the residents for services here. And that needs to be said. And that's why I think the mayor said that very well. I invite Jimmy to be a part of this discussion because I think having people that have the expertise and being able to be here is important. I think there, it allows for an honest conversation. So what I'm looking for is, number one, I don't have a ton of recommendations. My one recommendation or two recommendations would be this. I do believe that the maintenance services, it needs to be a separate thing for the maintenance services. We typically go to Goodyear for our tire services. On occasion, while the car is there, if it's due for an oil change, we'll do an oil change there. We don't like to go there all the time because they tend to be a little bit more expensive. I do like the services that Allied provide and what they do as far as their costs. It's not exorbitant. It's very reasonable. It's competitive. But we've also been contacted and have used on occasion Milo's Speed Shop in Silver Plume for some of our oil changes and some of our services. So I think that that needs to be not necessarily, and again, I'm open to what council's advice is on that. I think necessarily agreements, or whether or not we just kind of rotate. And we also need our vehicles to be in service. And there's times when we may call one of these businesses and they say, look, I can't get to that for a week. I just can't because I don't have somebody, or somebody's hurt, or somebody's on vacation. And that could be anybody. I mean, that could be any of these businesses. And we may need to get that car up and running. So, you know, have the flexibility to call another business and try to do that as equitably as possible, is what I would say.
Some things that come to my mind, or I'm sorry.
No, that's, you're fine. And then I was just gonna say the other thing that I would recommend is either we can stay with one tow company and maybe go through a process if we're gonna do that. But I also feel like there could be some value in having a rotation list with like 3 geographically close companies. One of the companies that reached out to me is actually out of Evergreen, D&J Towing. I don't know anything about D&J Towing. And by the way, I invited all these companies to this meeting. So I invited them to participate. I don't know if they're online watching.
One's here.
Okay, well, one's here.
Well,
So
that was the first point I was gonna make. It's a work session, right?
it's a work session.
This meeting's open to not only Jimmy, but.
It is. It's open to the
these other
public.
people.
Exactly, and they were all those companies that had emailed or dropped a card to me were all invited and told about this specifically from me via email. And so it's in writing. I invited them and told them this was gonna be discussed. Now, I did tell them that there wasn't typically public comment during work session because typically there isn't public comment. I said it would be up to the mayor to decide if that were the
And
case.
I was absolutely going to allow it.
Sure. But I did tell them there is public comment at the next council meeting, certainly if somebody would like to sign up. And the other thing I did add is that if they wanted to send a letter to City Hall, and I actually said to send it to Andy to City Hall, and that way it kind of just removes me from that situation. But so, and I will say this, Jimmy put me in touch with an owner of a company down in Golden, Wheat Ridge area, I think.
Well, he's in Golden,
He's in
Right.
Golden,
Yeah.
but I think he does the Wheat Ridge. also.
part of it,
Part of it. They have
They
it
have-
half.
yeah,
Cause
because it's so big.
so I talked to this gentleman, I think Connolly was his last name.
That's John, yeah, but you talked to Rob.
Rob.
Rob has all
So-
Golden.
I talked to him and it was, I spent a good 45 minutes on the phone with him. And it was interesting listening how like Golden, a larger agency, they do have a contract with one entity. So they do have a contract with one entity. So I don't want you to think that the way you did it before, the way it currently set up is somehow not best practices or not okay. There's places that can do that.
So does Denver.
And other places will contract with sole companies. So with that, I just felt like it was to help me, I need your guidance to help me with what direction we want to go as a city. And that way I can do some research, I can vet some of these things, we can leave things as is, which that'd be nice because there's really little work for me to do at that point. But keeping in mind, you do have all these other companies that may be watching what the outcome is. So,
Chief, I'd like to take what I feel is the easiest one first.
sure,
Council Chief's recommendation about the maintenance services being as equitable as possible, but being at our department's discretion as far as pricing, availability of the maintenance, so he can get his vehicles back in, patrol in a reasonable time and a cost-effective manner. But he should be free to, utilize services, just in the region and at his discretion. Would anyone have a problem with that?
No, I think it's tough because you can call Jimmy and say, hey, what can I do? And Jimmy be like, I'm slammed,
Sure.
and that doesn't help us, so I don't have a problem with that.
Kate, online?
Same thing, guys. I want to have the police department have a backup plan. So that's the only thing that I would be in favor of. But Jimmy has been, a loyal customer. I think this meeting shows right now that nobody else is here, that the chief invited to have this discussion, but Jimmy is. And so, I mean, I think that's, he's a good faith partner is how I look at it.
Well, Kate, I appreciate that, and my understanding, and I'll get Chief to confirm this, but that there actually are several backups in the plan, because if someone who gives good service and good price is booked up and can't get it for a week, Chief is free to go with others at his discretion. Is that accurate?
That sounds accurate, and frankly, I would try to prioritize the county, obviously, Bear Creek County and the city, but Bear Creek County, and that's what we try to do. I know that Goodyear's outside of the county.
Yeah,
but they're tired, they're
Well, that's
tire
a state-
specialists.
Well, that's a state bid.
And it is, and
Deal,
that's the pricing
Yeah,
for the
that's our
tires.
price point.
So,
of it, yeah.
but outside of that, you're right, you're exactly right.
And I agree with that too, that, and especially me being like, a repair shop too, for example, we had, I don't know if you were here yet, Chief, but, we had one of their Explorers that was down, up for like 6 weeks for a headlamp. And it was on back order, there's like 40,000 of them on back order, and it was $300. So, I mean, it doesn't matter where it is, it's down where, no matter what. And like, I got a brand new Cummins pickup. It had 9,000 miles on it, and it was at the dealer for 15 weeks for a tranny, because I lost transmission. There was 13 grand in 15 weeks of wait time. So I do understand like the whole, the reality of it. And, sometimes as to the customer, they're like, what do you mean? And, just like my truck, brand new, it's sitting out back in the dealership waiting on parts, tore down. And with, 10 other vehicles that are, 6 months old that they don't have parts for and stuff. But, aside from that, I'd like to, if it's all right, if the chief's done,
I don't have anything else to say, you guys. Like at this point, I feel like I've shared why we're here, why I brought this up.
Yeah.
And
So you have, I think, unanimous council
Sure.
decision on the maintenance.
Sure.
So that will just be as equitable as possible at your discretion.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
And like, I think you presented it real well. I think there's two issues, the maintenance and the towing.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
I was gonna
assuming-
tackle the hardest part.
And Chuck's right, I think that the easier of the two, I don't think these companies were after more maintenance with some of them, it's more of the towing, right?
Correct.
And Andy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that, this would be the way that Public Works has done their maintenance on their
I think
vehicles
so.
all along.
Yeah,
They don't
sure.
have a contract.
I'm glad you brought
It's,
that up.
They do some of their maintenance in-house,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then, it's up to the department head to decide, okay, who's available, what makes the most sense, and all of that. So I think what we're talking about here is basically pulling the vehicle maintenance out of the towing agreement, the way it is now.
Yeah.
So that would be maybe the first recommendation.
I would prefer that, and this is nothing against Jimmy, it's more,
Oh, no way.
no, I don't want you to think that.
No, I
It's-
know.
It's more, if you need a vehicle now, we don't have a huge stable of vehicles, so.
Well, I think everybody agrees with that statement. I'm totally down. And if I'm free, and the chief or somebody calls and I can, whatever it may be, then yeah. And if I'm 2, 3, 4, 5 days out on whatever else, I wouldn't expect
And if there was a business out there that wanted Chief's business, I think they would be walking in there and soliciting, saying, hey, I could do you a good job.
Well, and
Please include me
Well, it
with
sounds
some of this mechanical.
Yeah,
It
But
sounds too
that's-
like you have a relationship with Milo's Speed Shop.
Sure.
You know, so you have relationships with a couple, but, and I like that you were prioritizing county resources before we had.
prior to, and you know what Goodyear is, you know, there, unfortunately, we don't have one here in the county.
No.
But they do the state bid for tires for all government agencies, you know, local, state, and on and on and on.
Right.
Which, you know, I mean, we could do, but Chief's gotta order them, you know, and typically he's gotta either go get them, bring them to me. It's, I mean, there's more steps involved rather than just drive the car, put tires on it and done deal, right? I mean, all that aside, that makes sense.
Okay, I'd like to tackle,
Mayor?
yes.
Excuse me, Janine Mariani has joined the meeting.
Oh, Janine,
Hi, Janine.
we
Hi, Janine.
are, discussing the, tow rotation list, if we do have a tow rotation list. So far, it has been unanimous that at chief's discretion and as equitable as possible. Our department has, the right to shop, for maintenance services based on pricing, based on, availability of turning one of our vehicles as quickly as practical, to get it back out on patrol. And as Andy pointed out, that currently is the way, Public Works, does their maintenance right now. So, I hope you're on board with that.
I'm driving, so you probably can't hear me, but yes.
Oh, we can hear you.
I should ask the way water facilities handles their vehicles too,
Ah.
right, Ed? As
No,
far as wherever
never
you need them.
underestimate the Kenda Cleaver.
Big pardon?
That's a big tire and it was cheap.
There we go.
But I mean, you have the discretion of where the vehicles get serviced, your
Yeah.
vehicles get
Right,
serviced.
I mean, we've gotten tires like Firestone,
Yeah.
Goodyear.
You don't have a service
Janine.
Yeah,
contract.
Janine, so they're all free to shop, at their
Bingo.
discretion.
Okay, for the maintenance, so
Right.
now,
Now, the hard thing, which in my opinion may not be such a hard thing. I want to point out cherry picking, for a minute. Allied Towing had an agreement, with Idaho Springs. I have seen Allied pick up abandoned, motorhomes, for example, that I know they lost more than $1,000 on. Because it doesn't bring anything but problems after it's sat for however long, before you can scrap it. But without complaining, it's removed. This company did heavy tows and light tows. And, they weren't doing this, cherry picking. I thought it was interesting, Chief shared with us, the county had a call recently to pick up an abandoned vehicle, and they went through the entire list and couldn't find anybody that was interested in coming and getting the vehicle. Is that accurate, Chief?
That's what I remember on the radio.
So,
What was it?
It was about 3 or 4 days ago. I heard a deputy, it was pretty early in the morning. Like
I-
7 in the morning.
and
It was a
I-
trailer, I told it.
I bring,
It was a trailer, because I remember
Okay.
something about a trailer with a.
okay, but you can see what I mean about some outfits,
I told it.
may cherry pick, based on, is it gonna be an asset or a liability?
Yes, it
Now,
keeps it.
speaking of that, and Kate Collier, I'm glad you're on this call because I know you've been very outspoken over the years about this. We may have people who are interested in doing tows for the city. However, I'm just going one by one very quickly. We have a new outfit in the old Allied Towing building. I don't think there is one person in this room that would like to exacerbate a wound where we would once again have a heavy tow of wrecked semis drug on to that property without proper screening, and I'm talking like a 14-foot fence that can sustain the wind load to screen the wrecks. Also, it's not zoned appropriately where the wrecks were once stored. And at least in my book, I don't think we want to go back to that. And I feel that the other tow company is in a similar situation, albeit just outside city limits. I honestly don't know if they have heavy tow capability either, at least at this point. So
I'm told that they will, but that's okay.
yeah.
Is this Dad's?
And again, we do have the right to maintain a sole source that doesn't cherry pick, that takes heavy tows, take light tows, has a yard where they can take these items that isn't even in the city limits. And just because someone is a member of council, and I agree with Chief's point about optics, I don't necessarily think a business should be penalized. And I think that the agreement has worked well, and frankly, with the new location could work even better without cherry picking. And I would suggest we could always revisit this on an annual basis, for example, should one of these other tow companies be able to offer heavy tow, light tow, have proper screening and proper zoning, at some point in the future. But I'm showing no favoritism here. I just don't think we want that back in the city. It has worked fine at Allied's current location, and we do have the right to have an exclusive agreement.
Chief, did you, so you mentioned that you personally invited these companies here tonight?
Yeah, I sent them emails to the emails that I had for Dad's Towing, Wiggins Junction Towing, D&J Towing, and also to Milo Speed Shop. They have a tow truck, so they don't do heavy tows, but they do have a tow truck.
And
so I sent it to those four.
And these are on the county sheriff's rotation, but were you approached by each one of these companies?
I got an email, I got people stopping by directly from Dad's. I didn't have emails initially. They approached me a long time ago. Like, I think you guys were still, you were like moving, like in the process of moving when they approached me. And then I believe after that, it was Wiggins Junction sent an email. And then it was a conversation with Chris from Milo's Speed Shop. I actually think the conversation may have taken place either here or was it one of the fire meetings or something.
So these were casual encounters. Did any of them send you any kind of a formal resume or anything like that?
No, they just requested, like Wiggins Junction, who sent the email, just requested, hey, can we get on your tow rotation? I said, we don't have a tow rotation. We have an exclusive agreement. So.
And then another point would be, do we hold standards to how these performance evaluation or, Allied always, like you said, a couple one-offs perform very well. So do we have a standard of what we'd like a tow company to do? Because if we go to this route, the hard thing I think would be, how do you evaluate? We already know Allied's a good performer, and then we get a couple of these other players in the rotation, they're not performing to our standard.
And to Chief's point in his report, he did point out that Highway Patrol has a performance standard in theirs.
Correct. So, go ahead.
I understand, I'm actually fairly neutral on this one because, you're like, what? No, because I think you're right. I know that doesn't happen often because you are right about perception. You're right about optics. Say nothing about you, Jimmy, just you're right about optics.
Sure.
My concern is that we have a tow company that moved out, and now we have standards for this business that our tow company moved out, maybe didn't have to deal, I don't know. That's another issue. I would like to see for you, what would you like to see for standards? Like, I find the cherry picking from a tow company, if you don't have the equipment to do heavy tows or any kind of tows or abandoned tows, that's one thing. But if you say, I don't wanna do it, that's a different thing. Like, you have to be, if we say, hey, we need such and such tows, you have to go, okay, I have the equipment, I can do it. I think I would be happy to continue exclusive until you have a standard list of what you expect, and I don't have a problem if the standard list is, must be able to pull crap out of a creek, because that happens here. You know,
And,
Well, I have a
and
copy
on
of the
top of that, I wanna see their resume. If
yes,
they're wanting your business, they should present their business to you and what they're
with a
capable of.
formal,
Because Jim has all the equipment, that's another thing, another consideration, there's different sizes of wreckers, I'm sure, Jim has the big ones and the small ones. Do all these companies have those big wreckers? Do they have all the gamut of sizes?
From what I'm told that Wigan Junction does, and from what I'm told, Dad's does, and they're moving that here.
I've seen a number of like different sizes from dads. They actually, I thought they were yours, like almost.
They just have flat beds.
But here's, just to clarify too, I wanted to have this conversation before I started going much further with that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, if council wants to move in a direction at some point to say, look, we want to just be exclusive, or we want to continue with Allied, we have a good relationship with that. At minimum, like, we don't have response time standards in that current contract. I don't think so. I didn't see a 30-minute daytime or 45-minute nighttime response time in that agreement.
I don't know if it's in here.
I think
I can look.
I definitely would like to
I've
add
got
that
it
if whatever that's gonna be, because, and that was the thing about, so I have talked to you, Carmen, about this issue a little bit ahead of time. To your point, basically, there would be specific standards, if there's a rotation list of not only response times, but what happens if someone says, hey, I need the next one on the rotation list for an abandoned, and they say, no, we're not coming. So call the next company. So those things, that information will all have to be tracked on a rotation list. And that way, if a company starts to have a pattern of abuse of doing, like we're talking about, cherry picking the good tows, that they could be suspended from the tow rotation list or ultimately removed from the tow rotation list. So there's already a document that is in draft format that would create that if we were to move to a tow rotation with, companies that could respond in 30 minutes during the day. So that's gonna limit you to really geographically fairly close companies.
Oh, I was just
Well,
thinking
and
like,
that, if you come up with that, some of these companies might say we can't do that.
They might.
Well, and not only that, but I am thinking of the nightmare of having Zach and Dylan deal, for example, if we had one company deciding to heck with zoning, to heck with screening, I'm going to meet a 45-minute nighttime and 30-minute daytime response, and I've got heavy tow and I'm dragging it on to Idaho Springs property. So we're not under any obligation to put up with that.
I think we continue with this, but I don't think there's anything wrong with developing standards. I like the idea of 30-minute daytime, 45-minute nighttime. Because we have enough issues with our traffic routes, but I think they have to prove this. This is not an easy place to tow. It's just not, so. You
Yeah,
have
the
to have the
middle of winter
equipment,
and the
and you-
creek or.
and you can't say, no, I'm sorry, if you have the equipment and you say no.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
Kate Collier, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay,
Maybe you even had.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, guys. I thought this was gonna be an easy one. So yeah, to all of the above, no offense, Jimmy, but I'd really like to see the east end of town not turn into a broken down semi area again. And I definitely don't think we want anybody who's not good players when it comes to doing the right thing. when it, whether on a tow, like saying no when Jimmy would do it, 100%. So, yeah,
Do we also, and this might be going a little, we had talked about, you and I have talked about, I think, asking CDOT if we have that one spot over down by Hidden Valley, where we could put some of the semis.
I got plenty of room.
Actually,
Yeah, I have 35 acres.
Oh,
and Andy was in on this. It was actually the junction where US 40 branches off of I-70. CDOT has some acreage there. And I was proposing, number one, to not enrage what neighbors are there, and there aren't many, but appropriate screening. And that whatever was drug onto that property, CDOT would never be liable if like something happened and they were never picked up. They would never incur a cost. So there would have been a guarantee for CDOT. I want you to know, CDOT openly admitted they have a problem. We can't just leave broken down semis or burnout semis on the side of the road. I think many of you are painfully aware, we had a death with folks running into the back of one on the side of the road. So, it's imperative that they're removed in a timely fashion. And CDOT admitted that, this is it is a significant liability, and that this acreage that I'm speaking about also was not going to be a yard just at the whims of any tow company, but would be limited to I-70 or a US 40 breakdown. It'd be very specifically earmarked. Frankly,
should they go for that?
there was no additional work done on that after Allied relocated to the 35 acres. So to answer your question, we were going to do something in the city if Allied had stayed there, where Jimmy he's still been there, would not, I don't think it was fair for anybody for him to be stuck with a postage stamp size area to drag semis on, because they need to be removed from the interstate, but not necessarily brought into the city limits. And to me, the discussions with CDOT were to eliminate that. And Jeremy, your thoughts?
I guess my thoughts are, I understand that the response time criteria for CSP, it makes sense. Jimmy understands it too, because he's been on the CSP tow rotation for as long as I've been on the company. I guess my suggestion, if that's something you want to add, we renew the agreement, revise the 2020 agreement to include whatever criteria you feel is beneficial to you and your officers. I think it's the way to do it. I do believe we have an exclusive tow contract is beneficial. I know Golden does it for the same reason. They pull abandoned vehicles from their city. The sheriff's office doesn't do that as much, right? They aren't pulling them from municipal neighborhoods like we are. So I don't want to lose our ability to tow those vehicles effectively.
And thank you, he towed one today.
Yeah, and I think it's just sharing with your. Yeah, it's been he's towed more stuff for us over the years than I think anybody has. And then there's some issues too, some of the other tow companies on the rotation currently going on. So I think let's renew the agreement with some changes. And then maybe review it on an annual basis. If something changes, great. If it doesn't change, we go forth and it's working for us, because I don't want to lose the ability to play roulette with a tow company, hoping that they're going to pick the tow up.
I also think that you having standards that you want to see, if those need to be in the contract.
Sure.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If we don't have like official, here's what we want to see in our tow company. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either.
Well, that's how CSP has historically been able to limit their tow rotation to competent operators.
There's a key word right there, competent operators. I don't want,
Two of those requirements within their contract, that's how that gives them an out. And you're not working, you're off the rotation. Along with a couple of things, cherry picking and stuff like that, we talked about them all about.
Scott, would you be all right with that?
Yeah, it'd be all right with
Okay.
Jeremy just said.
All right. Kate, just checking back in, would you be all right with that as well?
Yes, I am.
All right, chief, enough direction for now? Okay.
I think so.
Mayor, Janine had to, looked like she dropped off, but I think she's reconnected by phone here. Janine, can you hear us?
Try to get your tone again.
So, if,
Yeah, she was on with one number and now
So?
she's on with another number.
if I may.
Yeah.
So I, just, like the chief said, they went through the whole entire list on an abandoned trailer at whatever town it was.
It's like 7:30 or 8 in the morning, was a deputy
Yeah,
out somewhere, out.
it was up,
Due Monter.
it was up 103, but, so anyway, they go through the whole list and, who goes and gets at me? Cause that's the deal, you take the good with the bad. So, and I think I've done a pretty good job fulfilling, the terms of the contract that we've had. We've been towing for Idaho Springs Police since 1984.
Jimmy, that's why I brought
So-
up, abandoned, and I do mean horrible myself, so,
Yeah.
motorhome, I know you lost over $1,000 on
Yeah,
that one.
And I don't complain about it, I don't, and then, well, we're talking about, 4 companies on a rotation here in the city, well, I've, and this is more of a personal thing, but, it concerns me as well that, I've spent a lot of money on equipment and guys, and I pay them really good, and I send them all to school, and we all wear uniforms, right? And so basically, that's 75% of my business that'll be gone. So if you start talking about cherry picking on more of a level of that, then what's the point? Because when I get called and it is an abandoned, I probably will say no. And not care. Because that's 25% of the work now that I get, and the 75% loss.
Well, and that's
So-
why Lisa brought up, the term competent operator.
Well,
Because
right,
we have
and-
years of experience and you just pick it up.
Yeah,
You're not sitting there cherry picking.
no, and it doesn't matter what it is, just like that hoopty I took today, right?
I don't know, Zach asked you, I don't even know what it is.
I didn't complain about it. It's a
From the bus
20-year-old
bus.
Sebring, right? I'm not getting paid for it, but my guys are gonna bill me for it, I promise you that. So, but I don't say a word, and, I think I've seen companies move in and out here, we all have over and over and over again. And I believe that, Allied's kind of earned the quote unquote who's who to be able to, proudly stand up and say that, hell yeah, I tow for the city and it's my company that does it. And I think over, the time that we've done that we've earned that. And I just don't, these guys blow into town and now all of a sudden, right? So, I spent a lot of money on new stuff in a new place and, right, to help this city and the East End and, for the future of the city of, eyesores and everything else to, help get rid of that. And it wasn't like I moved by, like my house, right? Cause I needed a new one or something. This was a big deal that talking about millions of dollars. That was a really, really big decision for my wife and I to do this. Not only for us as betterment and growth and all that, but also for the relief of the eyesores, and which I get it, and it was nice to not have the city up my ass. That was great. And so But with that being said, you know, we can do whatever we want. Whatever direction we all decide to go is fine. But I can tell you that if there's not one company that's doing the towing, it's just gonna be uglier for the city in the long run for, just like what we were talking about.
Well,
The cherry
Jimmy,
picking and-
I think that's what council, has given chief, the current direction.
Sure.
And in all fairness, from time to time, we will look at this as Jeremy had just alluded to.
I think that's fair.
But, for now, we are giving direction, that we stay, with one company that has all capabilities and has, proven performance. As Lisa had mentioned, like a competent operator. And,
That was actually Jeremy.
I'm sorry.
I just took it.
Well, me and my guys are jacking it up. I'm a big boy with thick skin, so you know what?
Well.
We'll decide that.
And I do think it's appropriate that
Yes.
we are saying, thank you for being a very, proven business and not letting the city down. Although we have not had a performance, time, for example, I think in sometimes horrible conditions, we have had very reasonable, responses. And so if chief, formalizes this in the agreement, I'm sure you'll be fine. He's not gonna do anything unreasonable.
Well, and I'd like to take the opportunity to say thanks to the city, everybody that, for allowing us to do what we do and all the above, and chief, you and, Ed, Paul, everybody that, moving the cannons and stuff, man, what a fun thing, tanks. I've moved a lot of cool things in this city, dude.
Half tracks, and I've seen all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
and you know what? I mean, who else can say they did that? So,
Stamp mill at 11,000 feet. And,
Yep.
yeah, there's.
there you go.
Outside of the normal basis,
Yeah.
you've done a lot of
Yep.
volunteer work.
And I always give usually all that to the city because it's a wonderful opportunity to do. And, it's cool to say that we did that. So, once again, thank you to everybody for, allowing us and what we do for the city. Hopefully everybody's happy with that. And just, I'm proud to be the one to do it. So,
Well, and like I said, it's fairly, when I talked to Rob and I talked about some of these other companies like down in Golden and Wheat Ridge, they have it in half. They've had those contracts like since the 90s. And so they over time have built that relationship with those companies that there's a certain level of trust, and if there's an issue, someone can pick up a phone and call somebody. And it tells me that's okay. That you don't have, the city, I appreciate it, Mayor, can choose. We as a city are gonna choose to continue down that path. We respect this company and we're gonna, and that's great. So I will work with Carmen on that and make sure that draft of that agreement, new resolution that only has towing with like the 30-minute and 45-minute is sent so that he can review that and we can move forward with it.
Sure. All right, well, thank you. Jimmy, I would ask
Appreciate
that you now put on your, city council hat again, because we are gonna talk about a snow plowing plan. And, I would like to start off with the fact that, Paul often has criticism because it's when you have a pothole that is seemingly getting larger in front of your house that, you're gonna be yelling at. Or you think your business might not have got plowed out in front of it, soon enough. And I'm just saying it's a very thankless job. We have always had, snow plowing priorities. It's just that Paul has not been given credit for having these priorities. And recently it reared its ugly head because we had a storm in which I know many of you know, we had doggone near a year's worth of snow in
Yeah.
one storm.
2 feet nearly.
Right, well, no,
Wasn't
I mean, last winter we
Oh,
had,
yeah.
I don't know, like,
It was in-
chief,
3
3
feet.
feet, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
It was in April.
Yeah.
and I bring it up because this is what happens. it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback and say the city has messed up priorities. And they don't understand, he is commanding limited resources. So we can't necessarily just have, a year's worth of people power at one time to handle the storm. And he has difficult decisions like, okay, how about we not shovel out the water plant? And then we have, right, some kind of catastrophe because there's an emergency and now you can't get to the water plant or the sewer plant or PD or fire. And he can't just say, well, I tell you what, we will plow out downtown and I won't plow out Montane Park or Pine Slope. Because we need to have the capability of an ambulance to get up these streets as soon as possible. And I'm afraid a lot of folks will look after a storm and say, hey, this didn't happen within 48 hours, for example, and it took entirely too long. So I want to thank Paul for putting together, and Paul told me this should have draft stamped all over it. Because, some of these things are based on how dramatic the situation is. But if your constituents are to ask, we do have a policy. Paul has always had priorities. It's just that he works, again, with limited resources. And I'm speaking of equipment and people. Actually, that last horrible storm, I think he was down a person due to surgery, if I remember right. And Paul, I will let you expand on this, but I want to say thank you for putting this together for us. And I know the difficulties that you have and how it is often not appreciated by folks when they feel something should have been done faster.
I appreciate it, Mayor. And again, this snowstorm, we get those large snowstorms from time to time. Sometimes we'll get some moderate snowstorms back to back to back that build up to that much. You just don't notice it as much because we're able to keep up with them because it's over a longer course of time. You get 3 feet in a 24-hour period, that's a lot of snow to deal with in a short amount of time. This policy is going to address more of the normal snow plowing operations, and we'll have a caveat in here. I'll add it to this. Again, this is draft. For those emergencies or those winter storms that I can't put a paragraph that takes care of every winter storm. So everything's going to be kind of have to be a little bit more flexible, but this should cover the majority of how we do that work, how things get plowed, why we hit what we hit first.
And Paul, if I may, I think a lot of people don't appreciate that if you can't put a crew together that will, let's say the number one priority is like getting a lane open, at least in residential areas and PD and fire plowed out, the water plant, sewer plant. And now maybe we get down to having people available at 5 a.m. to plow out downtown. Because if you don't have them early in the morning, well, it's not gonna do you any good if you had them at, say, at 8, when now all of a sudden cars are in the way, right? I mean, so a lot of times people also can't appreciate that. They may say, hey, why did this lot get plowed out before downtown? Well, it's because, you had some people available at 8 and there were cars now blocking spaces in downtown. I mean, is that a fair statement?
It can be. We also have some limitations on parking in the downtown area. So where once vehicles are removed, we can get in there and clear it out. And that's first thing in the morning. So we'll come in early to do those things. But if we're in the middle of a snowstorm and we have tourists that are coming through and they're just kind of parking willy-nilly, it's always a mess for us. It was a challenge one year. We had a bad snowstorm. We couldn't get the plows through the downtown area. There people just parked everywhere. Highways closed. Nothing we could do.
Yeah.
Nothing we could do.
Well, not to mention the fact too, when, CDOT gave us Colorado Boulevard to maintain, where they, the state Idaho they at least took care of that, which is a huge feat for you guys on top of.
Colorado Boulevard isn't as much of a, it's easy. But what it also allows us to do is to take some snows from the smaller areas that don't have the capacity to store it and
But
store
put
it
it
to
out
Colorado
there.
Boulevard, where we wouldn't have had that option had it been the state's highway.
I think having this is going to make a difference, like, I know you said you don't have a map, but, like you have primary, secondary, and tertiary, I think if we have a map that goes along with this policy, this is gonna tell people when they can expect to be towed, within a time frame. And I think that's some of the things that I have heard is that people don't know what our policy is. I think if we state what our general policy is, and nothing is, it will happen like this, it's going to happen like this, but having a general idea, I think having some information makes a difference for people.
And Lisa, you're right, because frankly, it won't make it better,
No, but
but it will
lack of
be,
knowledge
it
is
will
a
be
problem.
explained.
Yes.
Here's a couple of ideas on, these are kind of something I'm gonna emulate with that mapping and those zones.
Okay.
That's
Oh, no,
Netherlands.
I'm just looking at how they're doing it. And Central City has a lot of the same problems.
Well, yeah, they're probably worse, almost.
So I'm sorry, Kate, that I didn't have a digital copy for you. I was
Here, I'll show
gonna get you a copy.
It's okay, but I do wanna see it, Paul, and just to go back to what Lisa and Chuck were saying, I mean, that storm that we're talking about and the complaints that we got, it was a little bit obnoxious, honestly. Everybody at the exact same time wanted every road to be cleared for them personally, and it's like, I love that you're putting this together, Paul, because if it goes online, and again, guys, I'm sorry, I'm a week out from surgery, so I'm still wonky, I'm still on medication, so just bear with me if I get wonky in my speech. It seems like they want everybody to be cleared at the same time. Putting this online and maybe on our Facebook page would allow people to understand that we have a priority, but sometimes there's a block to that priority, and we have to go on to the next thing, the next road to get cleared. So having that information out there is essential. Thank you.
Well, Kate, thank you. I also, I want to point out one other thing. I did have people in downtown ask me why Scott Pennell was not behind a truck with a plow on it. They asked me why Andy, was able just to his office. And I politely pointed out that I think our insurer would probably take issue. And by the way, I'm inventing additional equipment for them to have driven. But if we had additional, I'm saying they're not proficient. And maybe they
Well,
have heavy snow caving in the door of a vehicle. They're not aware of certain obstacles that are people who are familiar with the city and are very familiar with the obstacles.
There's also the fact that we talked about this in front of people last year, and they had talked about deputizing snowplow drivers, and we said for the very reason that you're talking about, we can't just do that. We can't just hire somebody to do that, because when they crash into your car, I don't know who's going to pay for it, but it's not going to be the city.
Well, anyways, I will defer to Paul's judgment, because there actually could be, maybe we had some kind of emergency agreement, I'm making it up, but if council wanted to pay, for example, to alleviate the burden of plowing, maybe we give one area like the main parking lot or visitor center. I'm saying I could see a possibility of some, but here's the other thing. What we experienced the last winter with the big storm, that was like, a 1 in 8 year event too. So are you really gonna have some kind of emergency contract and then never have it used for however many years and then try to call a subcontractor in? Paul, your thoughts?
I've looked into and I've asked about those emergencies, and believe me, these are private companies that are making money elsewhere.
During a summer snow event, right?
During a very large snow event. So Could we get them up here? Some of these places are gonna be located in the Denver Golden area, and if, the state has the highway closed, it doesn't
Well-
work to have an emergency backup if they can't get
Did
here.
we discuss this? I just asked Jimmy, do you have towing? I mean, do you have plowing? If you have plowing, is that something we can discuss, because you're here? You know,
Typically, I'm towing though, just like.
okay.
No, I mean, you know, but like I used to plow the PD or I'd help out or like.
I don't know,
Whatever.
like that, because being up here is one of the problems, they have to get up here. I just think having a general understanding, I really like what Central City did, if you guys saw the map, they have priority, emergency,
Mhm.
level 1, level 2.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that would help people understand, okay, I'm in level 1, I might have to wait a little bit, like, in that big snowstorm, that snowstorm happened on, was it Thursday?
It started on a Wednesday evening and it snowed all day Thursday and into Friday. It rolled out Friday afternoon.
I saw
Oh.
towing on my road, and I live on a crappy little uphill road, it's terrible. I didn't see towing until Saturday, I mean, there was a basic push tow, but there's too much snow.
Yeah.
But I
And
know,
Paul always knows, I mean.
well, no, but I
Paul-
already know that I live on an area where it's gonna take me a while, but I think if people understand that, okay, here's where I live, you make precautions, you take. I do think, I understand exactly what you're doing back here, I do think this verbiage is not your best choice. I think we can do this,
There will be nitpicking.
there
You
will
know,
be.
because they don't, I'm just saying, a lot of citizens will not understand that Paul prefaced this in the very beginning by, this is not every storm.
No, it's not every
Right?
storm,
Yeah.
but I think we're gonna have a lot less complaining even during those historic storms, if there is an understood. Here's how we do it, here's the way we're doing it, and if people know, then they know to look for it, you know what I mean?
Right?
So they know they're gonna plow the post office, not post office, the police department, and the, like, I don't know, it's Colorado first.
Colorado Boulevard is an absolute critical artery because everything comes to
Yeah, so
Colorado. Boulevard.
Colorado is gonna happen first, and then they're gonna work through like level 2 and level whatever. But if they understand that, they know it, and then when you know something, you see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think this goes back to that idea of we need to be really transparent with people. This is how we do things. If you don't like the way we do things, okay, come talk to us. But otherwise, this is how we do things, so you understand it.
Yeah, cause I think if folks really sit down, they'll see, all you can do is reallocate, resources. So you wanna, I'm making it up, but prioritize Pine Slope over Colorado Boulevard. Or, right, no matter how you dice it, you only have so many, people and so many pieces of
But
equipment.
the other thing is too, like Pine Slope is, I would not plow that, that'd be terrible. How do you do that? So do you talk to residents and say, okay, here's how I don't know, like this to me seems like an opportunity too, where you can talk to residents, and be like, okay, you're level 2. You're not a priority, you're not an emergency, you know, here are some of the things that you can do to help remediate your own issues. I don't know.
Are you gonna be able to develop a map similar to that?
That one, I'll have to go to the county and help with the GIS for a map like that, because I have tried to pull off a GIS and tried to, paint some lines on the GIS. And we don't have the software for it.
We ask Central City for help. No, seriously,
Well,
like,
they probably went to the GIS to have something like this made up. There's nothing wrong with that. Where we take maps, we give them to the county, who then processes a map based
Okay.
on what we're putting on there.
I just think that would be a huge help for people.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, and I've got a few questions that might take some time. Can we have another work session on this, maybe to expand on,
Now I'm nosy with questions.
well, plow drivers, how many plow drivers do we have? What type of equipment do we have? You know, one of the big things with that big snow was snow removal. I mean, we need to have a plan to get rid of the snow because if it falls 3 feet, part of the problem is the excess snow that's laying around. I think we plow first, is the way we've been doing it, and then we work on removal as the cleanup begins.
Right.
So I'd like to hear, Paul's thoughts on all
And
that.
I do have a portion of this that will address that. I just haven't fleshed that out in here yet.
So those are some of the questions, and then, it says here, if it starts snowing, he measures it at 3 in the morning, I believe, or something like
That
that.
was cool.
Plow drivers are dispatched at 5. What if it starts snowing at 4 in the afternoon and say 7:30, there's already 6 inches out there? Is the driver's out until 10 and then you call it quits at 10? There's different scenarios where things
There are-
don't fit exact, you know?
No, it won't, but these are kind of standards, this is kind of an SOP. It's not gonna fit every storm.
Right. It's gonna be situational.
It will always be situational, we have to be flexible about everything. Now, storms like that, that was my call for that large storm in April. Not to hold anybody overnight to plow all night, because then I'm down that person, that equipment the next day. So we came in early in the morning, we had guys start at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we had guys start at 7 o'clock in the morning, we attacked it all day. Tapered off towards the evening, we had about another 6 to 8 inches that came in from Thursday into Friday. Again, we attacked that, the very next day. No new snowfall from Friday into Saturday, and we had everything caught up by then. We had a few outliers, those tertiary areas that we came back and finished up on Saturday.
I think,
Can I-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, this is the leapfrog on what Scott is saying. I think too, if we have like a lot of snow, which is not usually what's gonna happen, but letting people know where to put snow, because you guys plowed work in my area, and then residents came and dumped snow.
Yeah, right.
Like, I had a resident with a bobcat that was, and he was helping, it was the little white bobcat. And he came around and started helping, 3 or 4 blocks, but he was dumping snow where the city had already plowed, and I was like, hey man, what do you do? If you put the snow there, nobody can get up this road. He was like, oh, so I think identifying where can you dump snow, I know this is a pain in your neck, but I think that is important for people to know.
Sometimes we have the same problem as where to put snow. So areas that we typically do snow removal, we have our standard areas. We kind of take it to the end of the parking lot here, then we'll come back in a couple days after that storm's through. We'll remove the snow, or actually we'll just dump it over to CDOT's, over the fence.
Can I,
And I think it's just it's a very complex problem we have here,
But
especially when you get 3 foot of snow.
that large snow was even difficult for us to find places. We were trying to find corners. We were bringing it down to Colorado Boulevard and putting it on the Colorado Boulevard on the shoulder there. So we can come back over the next week, or if it takes 2 weeks, we can come back and start removing that snow when we have to tram at a longer distance. The idea is to get that snow so that people can get through. That's our ultimate goal, is to open roadways so that people can travel.
What I was getting from our citizens, if we put together a policy, there's no policy that's gonna be perfect. There's never a chance that you're gonna be able to perform to the utmost level to be everything's perfect. But if they wanna see the plan, we've got a laid out plan, this is how we approach it when we do that. So that's where some of my questions of things that might need to be more intact in this plan. And
I
then
don't
the other
wanna
question
try
I
and
had,
spell out everything.
not everything, cause it's situational, right?
right,
But like snow removal is one of the things I think maybe we should have a plan on.
Yes, and like I said, I have that in here, I just haven't really fleshed that out into this,
Yeah.
like I said, this is still in a draft format, this is still something I'm working on. This is just where I'm at with it.
May I ask that when you do snow removal, we would give some suggestions for citizens to like, that bobcat was a weird thing. It was just because they were working. Yeah, that's a perfect way. Best practices. If you are doing snow removal with your own equipment, here's where we suggest you put it, so you don't say this, but so you don't make life more difficult
I
for
mean,
the city.
a good example would be shovel it up into your yard, not out into the street.
Right.
It's actually against the city code to shovel your snow to the street.
So.
I don't know
So
if people are
where-
aware of that.
So, that, if you don't have another place to put it, where do you put it? And then it's also a code that we're supposed to clear
clear
our
our
sidewalks.
sidewalks.
So, in downtown area, where would you put the snow if you don't move it off the sidewalk into the street?
No, I get it.
So there's some complexities there. The other question, just a brief, I'll get done with my questions here, but how much turnover do we have in public works? How many of these people have been trained adequately on this equipment? And, have they been properly trained in the routes? They know the routes as well as you do. I mean, I'm sure the ringleader of all this, and it gets a little complicated.
Our turnover is very, very low.
Good.
So when we're training somebody, like the most recent 2 people we've had to train are Josh Curry and Chris Church. They came on a little over a year ago. we do ride-alongs with them. We do try and, you know, through our own experiences through the city, you know, it's better to go this way through these streets and then down the steeper hills. You know, so everybody's giving tips, everybody's giving advice. And, cause we've all made mistakes. It's, hard not to with the streets as tight as they are and as narrow as they are.
I remember that street sweeper incident. That's my neighbor.
Real quick, so that somebody, citizen must be listening in on this, says, we please tell Paul and the crew, his crew that are doing way too good of a job as the snow falls at nighttime. My kids get excited to go sledding before I can get the kids up to sled down the hill on the roads are already plowed out.
Okay, that's good.
LOL, thank you, Paul, and the city, and your crew from the citizens of Idaho Springs.
Thank you.
I know our guys do a great job and I appreciate that.
That was
Kudos
cool,
are
that was
great.
cool. So I just thought I'd share that, it was good, so.
Yeah, Paul, so my guys can plow snow too, and
It's,
I can plow snow, and I've come in and on some of those longer stretches
you guys have your
where it
own,
lasts like days.
I gotcha, but you have your own issues with water treatment plants. You know, I know Matty Dam's gonna make things a lot better up there.
And our backhoe works now, so we
I don't
won't be
want-
all,
I don't want,
help me.
you have 3 guys over there, and if you need those operators to be working on plant-specific things, they need to be on plant-specific things. Those are critical things that the city needs. If I didn't plow a road, somebody's stuck at home using a toilet that you have to treat
Right,
for.
that, the whole town's crammed in, and you need some help, we've got guys that can.
I appreciate it. I think we have managed every snow event, very well. The criticism that we got on, none of us have really taken any of that to heart because there was nothing there to take to heart.
Yeah.
We did a fantastic job. I appreciate my guys. They did an absolutely phenomenal job during that last storm. We've treated all those large storms essentially the same way.
I think I'll say this real quick, you know, we're talking to people that don't like snow removal. Part of the issue, as I see it from the outside looking in, is there's additional equipment you need. Right? You got 2 loaders with buckets only, you don't have blades for them.
I
So
don't blame
there's
for
an
one of those.
investment on our part that we probably should make in Paul's ability to multitask during storms that he currently doesn't have. And I think that's a message that goes back to the citizens too, is we would all like to do a better job, but unfortunately, in order to do a better job than what we're doing right now, we need a capital investment that costs money.
So
I
you
think we
can
need to
come to us
articulate
with
that.
a wish list of
That's kind of where I'm
things
going.
and
is-
what cost it might be, but I think
You
we,
still running a 936 cat loader, which is pretty rare in this picture, because it's, I don't know what the age of that is.
It has a big bucket.
Is
Um,
it the
but.
No, that's the cat.
But essentially, we're
That's
running
a big guy.
machines
is that the
that
Coke,
are
Coke Kathmandu? What are
older in
they?
their service life,
Come on, too.
Come on, sir.
very old in their service life. The 936 has been out of production for years. That don't have all the capabilities that we could provide for them if we were looking for a capital investment in the future. Where you can go from a bucket on Monday to a blade on Tuesday, back to a bucket whenever he needs to. So as we put this load on Paul and his crew, like, we want you to move snow, we want you to stockpile, we want you to do all this stuff. You figure out how to do it. Also, there's an obligation on us to go, what equipment do you need to be more effective? You need snow pushers so you can stack Carl Boulevard easier. All of these things we've done in other communities. It's kind of our obligation to figure out
I would agree with
creatively
you.
how we provide those for him.
Keep in mind, even, we could buy the best equipment out there. If it doesn't fit on the road, it doesn't fit on.
No, I
the
know,
road.
I've taught in Summit County for years in places, I understand what fits and what doesn't. Which is, gives us an opportunity, and Scott can test in the mines. We were plowing with 908s on the mine site for a reason, because that's what we had access to in the mill sites. That's all the space we had. So we can get you equipment that makes your job easier. I think that's an obligation on us to be able to look at that, do a wish list from you long-term, and say, okay, we can provide this, in the following ways.
I think
So
that's a good thing. I
whole
think that
side
goes
of it.
along with this,
whole plan.
you know, like, I think that's what people, honestly, that's my impression that I got when I heard from a lot of citizens was they want something like this. Like, is it gonna be perfect? It's not gonna be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but they wanna know what our plan is. It goes back to that transparency and knowledge, like,
Well, and the other thing is like, how many miles of roads do we have in the city that's responsible to plow?
Versus
How many
the answer
files-
to that,
how many
it's not
files-
right this second.
Right, and
Like, how many files does he have available per 24-hour period? And how many miles of road are they having to cover? And an example of this, if it's snowing 1 inch an hour, they have to cover those roads several times during that same 24-hour period. I think providing information so that they may not all understand it or process it, at least it's out there. It
I think
gives
it's
us
good, yeah.
a defensible position when, well, they only plowed my road twice in this last storm. You're correct, but they plowed the other primary roads that were critical 6 times in that same storm because of snowfall. I'm not saying it's gonna fix it, but I think it's
No,
just
I don't think
information
it's
that
ever, I
allows
don't
them
think
to
everybody's. I don't think any-
understand the position these guys are in. And how much work they put in that 16-hour day that they work from 5 in the morning until 10 at night.
Well,
That's really what they're doing.
that's a good point.
Well, one last note, it's not really a question, it's just a observation. That last storm was in the springtime. That melt off was really fast.
Yeah,
When you have that storm, same time in December, January, February,
To linger.
there's a big complexity to that because it does not go away fast.
Well, we have one more item, about the budget and before.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Paul, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there anything else? Okay.
I don't have anything else. I'm just, here entertaining questions. And again, if you guys have anything that you'd like to add, I know you didn't like my verbiage back here. But,
I'm trying to make your life easier,
I'm in favor of being
more
stern.
neutral,
Well,
more
and
neutral. like,
Lisa,
which is better.
Lisa is a writer. She might, be able to help. So.
As long as we don't get too coddly, I'm fine.
It's
All
not
right.
being coddly, I think you have to just be neutral.
The teacher with a red pen,
All right.
you got it.
So,
right.
just to wrap this up, Paul will, get this in, final draft form, we'll get some maps with it, and we'll bring this back to
All
the
right.
council
That sounds like
for approval. The other thing that's, I don't think is in there, that is another important aspect of this, that is more, labor intensive, is the shoveling that has to happen. So at some of our sites, there's actual, shoveling that has to happen.
That needs to be outlined in there so people.
Exactly,
understand how much
plowing,
work
it's
there
not
is.
as,
That's a whole different plan. That's a whole different aspect of what we do. That's our parks guys.
yep, it is.
And,
But I think it needs to be part of the plan, Paul, because that's, I think it's the total, it's the total package. It's a total package and it draws on your resources, so I think that's important to be in there.
Well, I think if we're gonna put this plan out, the
Yep.
more complete the plan is, the better it is for us.
Yep.
And for
To
Paul,
present it
yeah,
to the public.
that it's there, here it
And
is.
we have responsibility for 4 miles, well, not quite 4 miles, but we have Greenway through the city, the main part of the city, that's another part.
Labor intensive in its own right.
Right,
All by
it
itself.
requires different type of equipment as you were talking about, so.
Yep.
So we'll get this in final draft form and we'll bring it back in a future work session.
All right, well, thank you. Last item, the 2025 proposed budget. I think, I want to thank everybody, for bearing with us. I know this has been a long process. We've had a lot of meetings. I think we just wanted to have one, formal, final meeting about it. Andy, please take it away.
Just a few changes, as I had mentioned the last, meeting, on the budget that, I worked with Lorraine, our finance officer, to look at how we can best allocate the costs among the various funds, because that hadn't been done in quite a while, had been updated. We had done it historically for Public Works, but hadn't done it for some of the other positions. So that's been done. And with that and looking at, the updated financial statements, we feel that we can go with a 3% wage increase. We recommend that to council. We had initially looked maybe 4 early on, and with slowing tax revenues, thought maybe we ought to go to 2, but I think if we can settle on 3, that would be our recommendation to council. Inflation has come down, but folks are certainly still feeling high costs, pressures of costs of living, even with lower inflation.
And Andy, I just want to inject, since you have brought up high costs. So we pay for the overwhelming bulk of the employees' healthcare, 80%. And unfortunately, we got hit hard, 13.5% increase.
Yep.
The library said that too. The library
Everybody,
district
everyone up
everyone
almost the same
13 and a half,
as
that is
across the board.
insane.
It is insane. So that is a really big hit.
Nobody else got that kind of money.
Oh, brother. I mean, that's a huge hit on the city. So that compounded with the 3% raise is a very significant annual cost for the city. It's much larger than it appears on the surface.
That's a healthcare increase?
Yep, 13.5%.
If we cover
80% of it.
80%, their 20% is probably increased too then.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, then there's also dental premiums that are going up 4%, and they didn't have that this year.
It's still a good benefit though.
It's,
I mean,
it's very good.
Yeah. So,
So that was the one big change. There is of course, a copy of the latest draft of the budget in the packet. The other, couple other things I might mention, under general fund, on the first page there, I did add, not only the business and promotion vitality, director position, which we're currently, underway with this year. Is a website and marketing program at $80,000. Now, part of that is a one-time cost to get the new forward-facing website up and running. But I did add that as well, because that'll be part of the budget for
If I
2025.
may, Andy, just like, I know that looks like a lot for website and marketing, but I was at the business promotion meeting where they were talking about the website and dealing with Frozen Fire and trying to buy back all of the assets. That was a money sink, you know, this is a lot up front and it's kind of ugh, but to deal with the people that had already done it, that was going to be over a barrel, so my opinion. That would have been
Lisa,
over a
it
barrel.
actually is more than your opinion. I found this very interesting. Kent Slaymaker has no knowledge of this PR firm that Bojo's uses, that also looked at those folks basically holding that website for ransom.
Oh, they are.
And I want you to know, they both independently came up with the exact same thought. That it was highway robbery, they were holding it for ransom, and then frankly, it wasn't even our website. They sell and resell and resell
Well, and
that same website and just change
Their
the
customer
name and the
service?
logo.
because I know other organizations that have dealt with them, like Scott and I have dealt with them with the Historical Society.
Hmm.
Their customer service is in the gutter.
Yeah.
So I would
So
rather.
I
yeah.
just want you to know you're in good company with that. And again, we had folks who independently just came up with the exact same
Yeah, it was-
evaluation of it.
I didn't want to have any, I don't want another relation, I don't want that
Yeah.
relationship to
I think
continue.
that kind of got solved with today's meeting.
Yeah,
Did it?
I agree.
Productive way,
I agree.
as in no dealings with them at all, no
Yeah.
need for dealings with them. Therefore,
Good.
they can keep this is Idaho
This is
Springs
Idaho
and do whatever
Springs.
they want with it because there's no market for it anymore. That was my takeaway
No,
from the
that's-
day.
No, I think
That's
Jeremy's
the
spot on.
interpretation when I saw that. It made me very happy to see the business
Their team.
come up with it.
Yep. And Andy's on the board. Andy, I think that's a good assessment.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Sorry, Andy, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's all right.
It's a big number if you didn't know what was going on.
I think it's good to
behind
give
all
it
that stuff.
context.
I'll make
Absolutely.
one more argument for this. I think historically, we haven't been effective with this. And we sit here and go, well, sales tax is down, or I-70 is affecting us, we go, man, it's terrible, we gotta do something. This is really our opportunity that we form the board and to fund this, fully fund this, to do something for the first time in probably our history.
Ever.
Productively do something to get ahead of this stuff versus hoping the businesses promote themselves.
And if you
Or
haven't
somebody
been,
else
yeah,
does it
if you haven't
for us.
been to this meeting, the businesses are really engaged in it, like,
Oh.
that's huge.
Well, they are, and I would also add, for the very first time, this is not a shotgun approach. But we can measure literally to 0.1% the impact now. But because like a Placer AI, artificial intelligence, will tell us, all right, it was $1 in, it was $3 out, or vice versa. I mean, so, you know, if it ended up being not a good investment, well, we could say, well, then the heck with it. But I believe this is so targeted that this is going to be a case of investing money to make a lot more money.
Well,
This outfit, it's almost scary how laser precision
That's fantastic.
these targets are.
We also need it because next year Blue Sky will not open at all,
Right.
you know, and that's a huge draw. And I'm hoping that the Vitality Force will have alternatives for people looking for Blue Sky.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm sorry, I'm done.
Sorry, Andy, please carry on.
I do have a piece of good news, and not that the rest of this is good news, but breaking news. We did receive the $1 million grant for the Montane water tank.
Oh, excellent,
That was
yay,
awesome.
yay.
So that is a project that will be out of our water enterprise or water enterprise fund. And just excited to get that project going next year.
Well,
So,
congratulations to staff. I know you guys and Maria, you all worked on that,
Yep.
so
yeah,
yay.
all the
And
staff pulled
Ed,
together on that.
That's right, Ed, you were.
Ed is our good luck charm.
Bunch of things.
Good. That's good.
The rabbit's foot.
I don't know about that, 2 in a row.
That's,
So Mayor, that was really my update. Not a lot of changes, but I wanted to give council an opportunity to have one more look. Department heads are here if you have any final questions, and then as you know, we'll do the quality check on this, one more review of it as staff, and it'll be ready for consideration of adoption on December 9th, which is the first regular meeting in December.
All right. I caught, one thing just now, Andy, the water plant upgrades.
Yeah.
Line item. It says 150, but the notes that I put on there, it really should say, 500.
Okay.
Is what I put in mine, between it's the rockfall mitigation and the building, I want to put a building over the intake so it doesn't freeze. And then there was one other thing.
So the water.
That was,
Water plant line item should be what again, Paul?
500.
500?
yeah.
Okay.
There was one other thing that I wanted to do on there. That was the guess amounts. Oh, the clear well pumps, but that's already done.
Right. That was on
We have this
2024.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those on. Yeah.
But I don't want that rockfall medication to cost. The guy thinks it's gonna cost like $380,000.
I guess the argument is what would it cost if we had a rocker in the building? Probably way more.
Well, yeah.
It would.
Right.
And-
Way more. Be honest about it, it's something we need to get done. And not to go into the weeds too much, but I talked to you a little bit about how you do your budgeting. I know you put a lot of tremendous work in this, so. Elaine, she helped you with this?
Lorraine, yep.
Lorraine. sorry. So you work off of what your projected income is first, and then you work off the expenses second, right?
Right.
You build those to the income.
Yes.
Can you speak to the capital improvements maybe this year, just to refresh on what capital improvements we had for this year? And then maybe what's projected in 2026? So 2025 and then.
Sure.
And if you don't have them off the top of your head, that's okay, but
Well, okay,
it's like the Highway 103 water project starting in 2025.
sure, well, let me review those. So out of our sales tax improvement fund, one of our main projects is police station project.
Okay.
And we're about a 20% design right now on that. And we are currently, we're next week, we'll be interviewing 4 contractors to bring on board to help us join with our architect team to help design that project and then construct it. So it's
That was like an April start or something, wasn't it?
it'll probably be a little bit later than that by the time we get it fully designed and have construction documents. My guess is probably mid-year. I think if it all goes well.
Yeah.
So that'll probably carry over into 26, but I think it's reasonable to think we may be able to occupy that building by spring of 26. That sound fair? Winter or spring of
Yeah.
26?
Yes.
So that's a project, it's, that we want to bring the contractor on to help us try to assist us with the design where we might find cost savings and make them part of the team with this project, maybe bring in some local subcontractors, that sort of thing. So that's a big project. We do have a $1 million DOLA grant that we can apply towards that construction. Another project is the Shelley Quinn ball fields improvements, and that will be the skate park, tennis pickleball court, the playground, be the east ball field that will be redeveloped. We did get a $1.25 million grant through CPW. It's called a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. It's actually federal money. And but that project we expect to get started in the spring. So that project will be underway next year as well. And that'll also probably carry over into 26 is my guess. We did apply.
Were all phases on that, or was that just?
This will be phase one.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll probably be 2 phases of that, is my guess. Yeah. Virginia Canyon Mountain Park Trails Construction Phase 4. We applied for a $250,000 CPW Trails Construction Grant application. We were asked to proceed with that application. We'll present in January. And then our match there is relatively modest. It's a $250,000 grant. And then we would match about $62,000 for that. That would just keep us going with the trail construction. CRC Park Playground, we're in final design on that, but we're
Looking for
seeking
grants on that.
We're seeking grants on that
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Let's see, so those are major, and train shelter, as you know, that came back. So we're looking at maybe design options on that, maybe using different materials and also trying to seek funding for that as well. And then, so those are the improvement fund projects, and then the water enterprise fund. We have several projects. One is the Virginia Canyon and Virginia Street utilities replacement. That's phase 1. That's underway. The Montane water tank, we just got that, and that's mostly designed. My guess is we'll probably start about mid-year on construction there. And then the other is the water line coming from our water treatment plant down to the city. And those bids came back much higher than we were expecting. So we're going to divide that into phases, and that'll be coming back to council, I hope, at our next meeting next week, if it's ready. Now we've divided that up into phases. So the first phase would do the lower half of that water line, which is in worse shape.
Isn't that the one that's the worst?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a $1 million grant to apply to that project. So we want to be underway with that project next year as well. Again, maybe we might wait until the summer when we don't have quite as much water flow and to deal with.
Well, and we've talked about the complexity of that is not the actual work as much, it's just everything involved around it too, right?
Right, we have various permits related to that with the state highway, with the federal government, with the Arapahoe National Forest, so.
But if Blue Sky's not opening next year,
Maybe
maybe their
a
volume
little
of
less
traffic
traffic.
could be a little down.
Toward
Yeah.
Is this also where we have talked about, getting some, is this the EIA grant? Is that to like that whole 240 area? You know, it's not just the water, but I think I've talked to you and maybe Dylan about, there are other things that we can do to improve just that area that is south of 70.
Yes, that's the other big project we have is the mobility hub project and the pedestrian bridge project. So they're 2 different grants.
Okay.
The mobility hub is the raise
25 million.
right now, and we got the planning grant, and we're still waiting for the planning grant agreement so we can start using that money for planning. But we are applying for a capital grant for the mobility hub, and that's $25 million. And that's due in January. They moved up the deadline on us, which wasn't very nice of them.
Wasn't it February?
It wasn't end of
Yeah.
February, so we're gonna have to hustle on that one, but it still is our plan to get that application in.
But the planning is being done in 2025.
Correct.
The pedestrian bridge, you're waiting for that grant back, right, in January possibly?
That's correct. That's correct. So yes, so that grant application for the pedestrian bridge at exit 240 does also include some improvements
I was like, where is that
to
improvement?
Highway 103 between I-70 and the cemetery, which is basically the city limits there.
And the improvements include like trying to get sidewalks and stuff like that.
Sidewalks, maybe some parking, some traffic calming, to make it more like a city street, like we did with Colorado Boulevard, even though I think it'll still remain a state highway. But we'd like to try to make it a better entrance to the city there.
And then there's still talk about fire station.
Yes.
That's just in
In
the
the
longer term.
we acquired that land where the parking lot is designated for the future fire station. Timeline's a bit unclear right now, but that is the intent, eventually put the fire station there next to the animal station.
And then things that are happening in the city that are not city items, but the gondola is supposed to be going this next year.
Yeah.
We've got 4 Points
They
development
got all that,
going
they got all
full
that
bore.
funding.
What's going on?
Busy year, busy cut next 5 years, I think, what say.
You will start, the Argo project is starting to pull some permits. They have multiple permits related to that project. They have all their approvals, but now they're starting to pull permits. And some work that you'll see here very shortly is moving the waste rock pile where their parking lot is on the west side of the mill. A lot of that material will be moved to the east side, and they have all the approvals to do that. But you'll start seeing major excavation work going on over there. Eventually, that's where the parking structure will go on the west side of the mill. And in the meantime, we'll have a temporary parking lot in there until they get fully up and running with their gondola.
Thanks.
Yep.
Any,
Thanks, Andy.
I have one other question.
Yes.
Do we have any, outside of this, do you have any other grants that we are interested in pursuing for some of our other stuff, like the senior affordable housing project, because we'll have that paid off in January? Do you have other grants that you are eyeing for next year?
Possibly, because there is a fair amount of money that's available for affordable housing through the state. I think what we would really like to see is if we can find a partner for the affordable senior housing project. In other words, a private developer that might partner with the city to make that project happen. So whether that would also involve some federal or state funding, that could be possible as well.
And then how about this parking lot over here, the Get Gas property? That's gonna be just dirt parking at first and then.
Well, short term, we're using it as the field office for the Virginia Canyon
Right.
project. But once that's done, the plan is to raise that building and to make that a parking lot.
and
So
we want
that's
that-
about another 8 months or 10 months
Yeah.
for that project.
And we want that to be, so that it's available for when we displace all these surface spaces to build the parking structure.
Right.
I would love to see that
Well,
eventually be fully parking.
Not to think ahead, but if that police station starts, that construction might need some staging too, right? I wonder-
Perhaps, although we do have a parking on the north side there of the police station, or the future police station.
All right, any further questions for Andy?
Department heads, do you have anything you want to add?
Sorry, Kate, I'm glad you're still with us. You have a question?
I am, but my voice wasn't there. Enough for me, Chuck, thanks.
Okay, all right. Hey, wishing you a speedy recovery. Also, thank you for being with us.
I'm working on it.
And Janine, thank you for joining us online. And everybody, I want to say a big thank you. We will call this session concluded at 7:20.
There's a meeting Thursday night too, if
There
anybody's
is.
interested, right?
Yep, the downtown,
Yeah, Tommy Knocker, 6 PM. Everybody's welcome. First drink is free.
We can have some food too?
Yep.
I'm sorry?
they will,
Too?
they will have food.
Yes, they will.
Yeah,